Welcome to TextHelp.ae Learning Academy. Lecture 1, Introduction to Value-Added Text. This is the first lecture of a series of video lectures to follow, where we are going to discuss every single aspect relating to value-added text. Let's start the lecture. What is value-added text? The simplest definition of value-added text on the planet is a text on buying and selling of goods and services. Remember 4 keywords: buying and selling, goods and services. Enough for now. We are going to look at a very detailed example of how value-added text works in the next slide. So for now, just remember the definition: text on buying and selling, goods and services. Buy plus sell. Goods plus services. So whenever buying and selling of goods and services takes place in a country, the text that comes into play is called value-added text. Of course, the government should have implemented value-added text in order the text to come into play. 4 key concepts before we go into the detailed example of how value-added text works. Number 1, indirect tax. Value-added tax is an indirect form of taxation. It will never impact your income directly. So number 1, not affecting income directly. Number 2, charged at each stage of supply chain. What is supply chain? Supply chain is the process through which a commodity goes right from the manufacturing to the distribution. So value-added tax is charged at each stage of supply chain. Enough for now to understand before we go into the example. So it is a staged taxation. Number 3, output tax. Any tax that we charge while selling something is called output tax. So, charge on sales. Number 4, input tax. Any tax that we pay on purchases is called input tax. So 4 key concepts. Number 1, value-added tax is an indirect tax. Never ever it is going to impact your income directly. Number 2, charged at each stage of supply chain. It is staged taxation. Number 3, output tax. Any tax that we charge on sales is called output tax. Number 4, input tax. Any tax that we pay on purchases is called input tax. Let's now look at the detailed example of how value-added tax works. In order to better understand how value-added tax works, let us take the example of milk industry. What happens in the milk industry? A farm produces milks and sell it to who? A factory. Factory then sells the same milk to what? To a wholesaler. From wholesaler, the milk reaches to what? To a milk shop. And from milk shop, it reaches to who? To consumer. So what is this whole process? Starting from farm to consumer. This is called supply chain. Let us suppose that before introduction of value-added tax, the farm was selling the milk at the price of $20 per liter. The factory was selling the same milk at the price of $40 per liter. The wholesaler was selling the same milk for $60 per liter. And the milk shop was selling the same milk for $80 per liter. All of a sudden, the government introduced 5% value-added tax. So what will happen after the introduction of VAT? The price of the milk will change to what? 20 plus 5%, 40 plus 5%, 60 plus 5%, 80 plus 5%. So what's the new sale price now? Sale price 20 plus 1, 40 plus 2, 60 plus 3, 80 plus 4. So what is this 1, 2, 3 and 4? This is value added tax. So as you can see, it is charged at each stage of supply chain. That is why it is called as value added tax. Every time there is value addition in the supply chain, the tax that comes into play is called value added tax. Now, let us understand how value added tax impacts the businesses. Output tax, you remember we studied? Output tax is the tax on sales. So how much firm is charging output tax on sales? $1. How much factory is charging? $2. How much wholesaler is charging? $3. How much milk shop is charging? $4. So the total turn out to be 10. Now input tax. Input tax, you remember we studied the tax that we pay on what? Purchases. Yes, it's a tax on purchases. So how much firm is paying? We don't know. So for us, it's nil. So how much factory is paying? Factory is buying the milk at what? $21 per liter. Out of this 21, what is value added tax? $1. So the VAT that factory is paying is $1. How much wholesaler is paying? Wholesaler is paying $2 to factory as value added tax. How much milk shop is paying? Milk shop is paying $3 as value added tax to wholesaler. So how much is paid at each stage to the government? 1 minus 1, nil, 1. 2 minus 1, 1. 3 minus 2, 1. 4 minus 3, 1. So what is happening? The businesses are simply deducting their input taxes from the output tax and paying the balance to the government. Two very, very important points to understand now. So number one, so what is the cost of value added tax to a business? Let's see. A firm collects $1 and pay $1 to the government. So the cost for the firm is what? Nil. The factory, it collects $2. Paid $1 to firm already and paid $1 to government. So what's the balance left? Nil. Wholesaler, it collects $3, pay $2 to factory and paid $1 to government. So what is the cost? Nil. Shop, it collected $4, paid $3 to wholesaler and paid the balance $1 to the government. How much is the cost? Nil. So very, very important point established here. The cost of value added tax to business is nil, nil, nil. So who is bearing this $1, $2, $3 and $4 cost that is being paid to the government? Let's go back on the top. $84 is the price that consumer is paying. So who's bearing the total cost of value added tax? $4. Consumer. Point number 2. It is the final consumer in the supply chain that bears the whole cost of value added tax. So now let's go to the summary. Point number 1, value added tax is indirect tax. It will never ever impact your income directly. Agreed? Point number 2, it is charged at each stage of supply chain. You go back and see, right, starting from the farm to the milk shop, everyone is charging 5%, 5%, 5%. This is called staged taxation. Number 3, the cost to the business is 0. Yes, we studied, if you see down here, the cost of value added tax to business is 0. The businesses will not bear any cost. They will only act as an agent to collect and pay the value added tax to government. Number 4, the final customer, the final consumer in the supply chain bears the cost of value added tax. You go back, this whole $4 is paid by who? Consumer, the final person in the supply chain. I hope that you have a clear concept of how value added tax works now. Thank you for watching us. Please subscribe to our channel and give your feedback in the comments below. Thank you.